Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. It's been a long time, like 4 or 5 days since I last played this game. Uh, had to exit out and reload. It's funny because this game tries to kind of attack you mentally, but if anything, the major factor here as to why I haven't gotten back to playing the game is literally because it's been boring up until this point. I know we're only about an hour and a half, maybe a little bit more than that, into the game, but the introductory and the tutorial stuff has not been good as far as introducing any like interesting gameplay mechanics. It's all just slow walking, finding these totems, uh, and um, and listening to dialogue, looking at cutscenes, and then fighting in the frustrating fighting mechanic.
Ymir was a frost giant, a being of darkness, and all his sons and grandsons were dark after him. Of his daughters and granddaughters, some were monstrous, but others fair. But there was another who came from the ice. Buri. In shape, he was like a man, big and powerful. His son, Bor, took a fair giant to be his wife, and they had 3 sons. Odin was the eldest, and the Northmen hold him to be the foremost of the gods, the All-Father.
This area does look a little bit more modern, which it would be interesting if we started to see more modern construction techniques versus the kind of wooden construction techniques we've seen. Also, so far, we've not really seen examples of tortured people in this world. This area was the area we should have done first, and they should have just made us do it first. This is going to have the bird like creatures attack you, which, like, I guess modern might be the wrong word. This might very well just be a different area. Now, that's weird that you hop over that. That feels like an animation that really didn't need to exist. And I am going to have to somewhat criticize any game that barely gives you any gameplay and then spends the extra effort to have you jump over a log. It doesn't feel like that's a loading section. What I would assume that is a marker to stop enemies from chasing you any further. So if we start getting attacked by something and it decides to chase us. I also feel like we're going to find a face somewhere in a waterfall or something. There, a face of the mother or a face of the father or someone else. This looks like to me we're going to end up going full circle and ending up exiting just by jumping off this area. That is how it seemed like it worked before. Is there anything? Nope. This isn't. This is the beginning of the first.
It's a door. No, it's a bench. No, it's not. Push it. Push it down. What do you think will happen? Come on. Push it.
So yeah, the game just with the voices tells you what to do, which is, yeah, fine for a tutorial, but it feels like what's going to happen is that the whole game, for the entire length of the game, is going to have the voices telling you what to do. So we have a ring here, and over there we have a path. We can jump down. So I think we had to scan this first.
Illusion hides the path to Valravn. Don't trust your eyes.
to see the truth.
All right. I did see a little bit of like gameplay of this game, and it pretty much was this section. This being one of those games that was probably too much of a video game journalism darling, they probably respected the wishes to only show the first couple hours of the game.
It's funny. We all want to see behind the veil, don't we? But once we do, we mostly just close our eyes again and pretend what we saw was never really there.
Did it get darker or anything? No, not really. Remember, there was this kind of darkness on top of the enemies just appearing. And I cannot pick up this torch, which I thought maybe you would do that. But yeah, the game just auto-saved, and basically nothing has happened yet. What's funny is if this was more of a puzzle game and we were doing something like The Witness, there would be more to see is because of that puzzle perspective element that The Witness has. Or if this was more of a walking simulator, you would probably see more even in that instance. Whereas here, there is kind of an emptiness to the hallways and the paths. Like, a lot of this content feels like there would have been a lot more gameplay. The only thing I could think is that perhaps at some point in the future, and I don't think it's really going to happen in this game, but at some point in the future it would almost make sense for you to have to walk through every area and just have enemies spawning fairly commonly.
Never could close her eyes, however hard she tried. Begged.
Seems like we've triggered a cutscene. Green leaves falling in the air. I don't like the third person perspective zoom in here. Like, I don't know why she'd be specifically afraid of this. There's not even dead bodies here. This should be, in my opinion, less scary than areas she's already visited and would have already visited in the first area. I kind of feel like if you are going to... It is getting darker. I don't know what I'm trying to see though. Like, I don't have any buttons or prompts or anything to scan. It says you're in danger, be afraid. When you zoom in and focus, you're right over the shoulder. When you're not zoomed in and focused, you're still fairly close to the shoulder. Oh, and you were just supposed to press A. I thought I had pressed A, but apparently it didn't trigger.
This is the price she pays for seeing things differently. Because once you gaze into the relentless darkness, all that lurks within it can see you too.
And there, the audio got closer and a little bit louder. Are there any? female victims here, or is this still just all male corpses? I feel like it's a hard journey to have people. There's one corpse just hanging in an odd angle. There's another corpse. It's just a hard journey to try and take people along with you. And frankly, they needed to establish Senua more as a character first before we got to a horror section. Like, I've kind of forgotten all the, like, I'm wondering if there is a benefit towards dodging one way versus dodging another. Alright. So, like, with the focus system, I am going to try more and more to I'm going to try more and more to not die. And I assume here you are just supposed to push the buttons, and the game just really did not tell you that. And just like 3 powerful attacks in a row seems to be all it takes when you're in focus mode.
The Northmen will not stop her. She will find what she's looking for.
Yeah, and they want to play it both ways here, clearly, and they want to say the Vikings did something terrible to her, and that's why she's being haunted to them. But then they also want to keep that a secret and not show it to us, which would have helped us at least see her as a bit more of a damsel in the distress character, at least in some points. Because we don't have that experience. We started with her just hearing voices. And while I can try and sympathize as much as I can with someone that has mental problems.
Valravan's power of illusion comes from ravens. Align the ravens to break his magic seal.
Show me what you have seen, Truth. Look how much it's changed. It's all different.
Interesting how the fire has this weird effect. I don't know if that's supposed to work with anything or not. Again, climbing is cool and all. I just don't know if it's necessary. Like, undoubtedly there was a different game here. Like, undoubtedly these would have just been the puzzle sections and there would have been a lot more regular gameplay. Here you can see the camera doing a fairly standard thing of clipping through walls. I feel like Heavenly Sword did this very similar story to this, kind of a lot better. And there's definitely a lot that happened in Heavenly Sword to develop that character and have side characters and have a very interesting eclectic collection of enemies.
Do you feel it too? It's like crossing into another world that looks the same but feels different. An imposter world where the forest itself is watching.
Now, one thing I guess I will say about Heavenly Sword is that while it was much more of an action game where you couldn't go 5 minutes without having to button combo mash quite a bit, there was also a considerable lack of seriousness in Heavenly Sword. It did have a few serious sections, but a lot of the enemies and a lot of the characters were comically and laughably villainous. Whereas clearly this game is trying for more of a serious experience. I still can't really even wrap my head around
Another game.
the way this controls. This is really crazy that you have to
Stay back.
control her head.
Don't listen to them. Listen. Don't. Open it. You can do it. Don't touch it. Stay back.
To break the seal, align the ravens with the mark of Valravan.
So we're gonna have to work our way around.
Which ravens?
It feels like there's
Line up the ravens.
not really a lot going on over here in the left side of the map. And then this is one of those cases where I'm now bending over backwards to try and figure out a way to get there. And they have the flame up there acting as a marker to tell you where to go. Alright, so what it looks like, this turns.
I hear something.
If you hear the song of Valravan, follow it, and it will lead you to him. But be aware of his illusions. You can't always trust your eyes.
So I'm not walking through there. Are we walking? This feels like this is going to be fairly impossible to do. Like, it feels like it is going to be fairly impossible to do without maybe turning up the audio more. Like, even having the headphones on. Because where I hear it is like over here. And since this has put me in like 2 different modes. Nope, I was just looking at the absolute wrong place. So it doesn't seem... I thought for a second there it was going to change the game and have us walk... have us have to walk blindly following the audio without really following a path. But nope. Instead, it's...
Challenge me.
And see, now maybe this may just be a case of us now being forced to
He's gone. He disappeared. Where did he go?
to see visions.
It's all your fault.
So this is just like a skeleton. And it looks like this path is opening up again. And these paths are getting just complicated by the noise and by the slow walking. I thought what might happen is we would end up walking through a illusion and it would just mirror the world, and that there'd be a bit more of a puzzle there. This doesn't really feel like a puzzle so much as it just feels like it's just wandering. Seeing smoke particle effects, they don't seem to really have anything to do. Frankly, at this point, I kind of appreciate almost a survival game where we're just flower picking. Like, yeah, I think I would kind of appreciate that idea more. Just straight up just flower picking.
Wouldn't be the first time. Last winter, before the tragedy, she journeyed into the wilds of her native land, living off berries, roots, and rabbits.
See, that feels like
Uncommon, you
that's
see.
maybe something you could jump over.
A Gelt. Some, like Truth, become Gelt in search of penance. Others, like Senua, to purge a curse. Those who make it back are forever changed.
Yeah, it really is just walk slowly in this direction so that you can let the audio play out. Not really solve any kind of logical puzzle, really just walk from point A to point B. And we've seen this so many times in other games. And sure, it's prettier here than a lot of other games, but boy, am I tired. Yeah, boy, am I really, really tired of...
She can get up now. She can get up now. What's happening? She can get up now. How can she get up? A trick. Raven. Tricking her. Raven. How can she get up? It's him. Dark magic draws her closer. It's not. He's helping her. It's
If
not.
anything,
She's doing it on her own. He's not tricking her.
this feels
It's an illusion.
like what could have been an interesting introduction to the concept of a Zelda-esque game. Can I jump over this? No. I think there is something to that idea. Right, so this gate opens on this side for no real reason. And this gate opened on the other side, and yet there was clearly 2 or 3 different ways you could have ended up in the same place. Which that only makes sense if there was going to be more gameplay here, and I still don't think there is going to be. This is a game that came out slightly before Zelda Breath of the Wild came out, but yeah, both both worlds. I imagine if anything was stolen, though, this was stolen from God of War design much more than Breath of the Wild. But yeah, bright glowing symbols are in Breath of the Wild. More open world areas are in Breath of the Wild. Of course, the Nintendo Breath of the Wild game is more colorful and CGI, but like, if anything, an adventure Zelda-like game on this could take half of the features that Breath of the Wild had, and it would have been fine. And frankly, some of the features in Breath of the Wild would have been better off left on the cutting room floor, so that if both games had met in the middle, there might have been
We picture fear.
a better
Then we
experience.
think of a shadow in the woods. Creature in the night.
Hmm.
If only it were that simple. The worst kind comes without warning. Deep and primal signal from within. A reminder that just because you cannot see the threat, it doesn't mean that it's not already here.
So either this illusion guy is going to try and attack you, like as you're opening a door, which obviously it's trying to get you.
She can't go in there. Valravn, he's there. She can't go in. Has to find another route.
So I guess we're gonna come back this way. Hmm.
Find your own path. There's a different way.
It's too many voices saying the same thing in a row. Like, they could have waited a few seconds. But yeah, it feels like you're gonna open a door and you're probably gonna get stabbed in the back by this creature, or even more boringly, you're going to enter an area and find that there actually isn't even a creature to fight. Alright, so I think the shield guy in particular needs to be attacked second, which, how can you shift focus? It doesn't seem like you really can. When he shield bashes you, you're really not able to deflect it.
End it. No, this is nearly the end.
So apparently I don't have a focus attack at the moment.
Defend us. Nobody cares.
Alright, come on. And this guy just will not attack, so it feels like this game is just going to constantly throw attacks at you, but it's not gonna really help me win unless I can get some kind of helpful secondary ability that lets me roll a lot better. And if they're just gonna constantly throw double enemies at me, you are just gonna always get outranked by that.
Do it.
I also feel like your ability to focus seems to disappear after the fight. It doesn't really seem to stay with that mirror, that fan, whatever it is. It also seems like if you get knocked down once and then lift yourself up on easy, you just instantaneously knock yourself. You get up instantaneously just by pushing any button after that, which seems like a bit of an overcorrection, because then it really does highlight the feeling that the game is not really doing anything for you. I may very well have gone the wrong direction. Yep. It came this way. And so it will be very annoying if I have to fight those characters again. They could have used the voices, certainly, as an element to increase the voices in your head if you're going the wrong direction, and decrease them because they are kind of negative feedback instead of trying to use them as positive feedback.
His brothers killed Ymir, and that the world of men was formed from his corpse. They made his bones into stone, and his flesh into earth, and his blood into the salt sea. They set his skull to be the bowl of the sky, with his brains for clouds. Odin and his brothers caught the sparks flying from Muspel and made them into stars. And to protect the new world from the giants, they used Ymir's great curving eyebrows as walls.
I guess you have to press A here to get under it. At a certain level, since the fighting part is kind of a major pain point in this game, I would have been probably fine with them just cutting out the fighting part too. Making those cutscenes, making those look really cool. Or just not fighting people at all.
Perhaps never to return.
Perhaps having constant enemies just attack you and make you feel like you're in danger, but never really being able to defend yourself.
Turning home into a foreign land and loved ones into strangers. Exile makes sense when you realize that you were never really home in the first place.
Like, it probably would have made a lot of sense to simply have her not have a sword at all. I don't know if I'm supposed to go this way or the other way. Does seem like you can kind of go in circles. Wouldn't be surprised if this actually is just going in circles. We have a lot of markers, but these hanging markers in this instance may not really connect or relate to anything. There's the door. So I think what they're trying to offer here is a real challenge.
The song. Balraven's song. It's over here. It's over here. Is that? It's over there. No, it's here. There's two. Which one? Listen, focus.
So I guess at this point we are Just going to pick a path.
This reminds her of somewhere.
The forest.
Where? Which forest? Forest in the wilds.
The wilds.
She left didn't she went to the wilds a long time ago. Why did she go to the wilds?
She wanted to fight her own darkness. She thought she could beat her own darkness.
Did she beat the darkness?
No. It nearly killed her, but she tried.
Druth helped her.
If it wasn't for Druth, she'd be dead.
She can't beat her own darkness.
I guess the question is if
She
Druth
wanted to
is
marry
even real.
She came to beat her own darkness and marry
Hmm.
David. But it didn't work.
She thought her curse would affect him.
She thought her curse would spread to him.
Hmm.
She thought she'd bring the darkness to him too.
Apparently this path has
She thought
been
the curse
broken
would
now.
affect him.
Druth helped her.
Hmm. Yeah, it really just does not feel like you can mess this up. All you can do is potentially get a little bit lost.
The ravens. They've gone. No.
Half of them have gone. They've gone.
Some are still there.
But where?
Hmm.
No, Raven's helping.
He's not helping.
It's a trick. Quiet. Out in the wilds. In the cold winter woods.
Where have they gone?
She no longer felt fit for this world. She almost gave in to the darkness.
This really feels like almost a bedtime story just being told to you.
She remembered Dillian's words. She remembered her promise.
Honestly, it looks like I could pretty
She
much
resolved to
just
fight on,
make the
And
pattern
cure.
right there.
which had become a part of her.
Yeah, well, we found the solution, but apparently you have to get rid of all of the other hanging symbols, which they're describing as ravens. Which... Okay, fair enough. They're gonna make you actually play the game. Think we're going up there. Which means... Well... Trying to find our way across. I really don't feel like you can expand on this concept much more. You're just adding way too much 3D level design. We want to go... I think here. It feels like you could just climb up that. Which means I think we need to go here. Which means we've yet to learn any kind of jump ability. Anything like that. So this here must fix the bridge. That yes, it does. To get this way. And that's exactly what I felt like this game was going to do. Is that you really could not mess up. Of course, it's just going to kind of waste your time if you mess up, and that's it. This 40 minutes of gameplay so far has introduced the idea of bridges and portals, which I kind of feel like even in that scenario, you probably aren't going to have 3 or 4 more levels that take these concepts and does something really amazing with it. And I guess if I was going to compare this to Portal, which had, I would say probably about 20, interesting. It had about 20 levels that iterated on each other somewhat to one kind of grand finale. I don't think we're going to have that be the case in this game.
In order to receive. They tell how the runes were revealed to Odin.
That was an easily missed one.
Sacrifice. He hung himself from the world tree, and he stabbed himself with a spear, and he dedicated the sacrifice to himself. For 9 nights he hung on the tree without food or drink, and at last he saw the runes below him. He gave a cry, and gathered them in his mind, and learnt them.
It's just like nothing you could have even done while listening to this. I mean, that's one of the few places where having a slightly longer hallway to walk through would have been beneficial, but maybe I ran through that section also. Okay. How does one get up there? Maybe we are getting to a point now where you do... I can't even jump off the edge here. I have to walk all the way down. Maybe we're getting to a point where I did need to open this gate and then bring back that wall. So if I walk through it this way, does the wall come back? No. But if I walk through it again this way, the wall does come back. Part of the problem with comparing a game like this to Portal, though, is Portal was a very high action puzzle game, while this is fairly low action. The only thing I could think is that all these fake enemies could start attacking you, and maybe you'd have to dodge them or counter their attacks with quick time events. It's about the only thing I could think you could pull off.
The ravens. No. There's three. Where have they gone? Gosh, she did it. What does that mean?
Looking back, I was so naive to think she could banish it on her own. The further she saw into the darkness, the more she struggled to see anything at all.
Like, now would be the time for these to start coming to life and attacking you. Really, is when you felt like you'd accomplished a lot.
Grow in strength until they consumed her whole.
There's a whole
Before she knew it,
path
darkness had her in its claws.
that I think I missed or failed to open. Yeah, it probably doesn't really matter. I don't think I can line up the shot from this perspective, so I may very well have to just wander through different paths. And some of these gates may not be passable. Yeah, that's gone. There was a piece of wood there before. Hmm. Hmm. How do I get back over there? Or did I somehow just soft lock the game? Is that what really happened here? Hmm. Was this path? Because this is now blocked off. And I just, like, I can walk through here. And then the path is back. Which is great and all. Which probably does imply that there is something more I need to do to get back to where I was. This path is blocked. I don't think I can jump down even if it would let me. That wood is back. Okay. So that's what changed when I walked through that path. Yeah, I don't see how this doesn't get monotonous very quickly. Honestly, it already is to that point. Like, you're just not going to want to have to wander around through this puzzle stuff over and over again. And had I simply just pushed this over, that would have saved me some frustration. But obviously you don't really have to push it over. I hear an audio thing that sounds almost like a siren playing. I think they are intentionally playing some kind of disturbing sounds or jarring sounds in the background. On top of the whispers. And I suppose it's worth mentioning that I don't feel like my mental health has really been affected by this game so far, as of yet. If anything, I'm just bored and frustrated, which that's not anything special compared to hundreds, if not dozens, thousands of other games that I've played. I know that this is it, but there's something weird as to why it's not really lining up. It doesn't feel like the game really wants to verify, because it's a bright white light. It's kind of hard to line up the edges. But that does look right. And would there be any higher position that I could stand to see it? I guess I'll just inch my way forward, left and right. Wonder if I'm maybe having to stand in a couple of places for a while. This could very well be a case where I need to walk a little bit further to the left or right. Like, that seems right. If you go too far to the left, Doesn't seem like it really works. We go too far to the right. Doesn't seem like that really works. Do I need to go back and scan the door? I wonder. Or maybe I need to stand on this platform. If I need to stand on this platform, it kind of makes it feel like that this really should have only been allowed to be done one way. If I walk back through there, then it would just bring back the ravens, which I don't think the goal is to find the right solution, which I had already found, and then have to bring them all back. I feel like if that was the case, then they would have told us there's one missing. They wouldn't have established the idea of having 3 in a row. Am I doing something wrong with the shape? I don't think so. One Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. There's no like crouching down button. So why is it not locking in? Oh, okay.
The gate is open.
Alright, that was because I wasn't looking with the camera. This once again just highlights the weirdness of using the right stick to control the camera so much.
You'll gnaw at her, biding its time. Only when she is at her weakest will it strike to kill. Will she find Dillian before her time comes?
Well, I guess on that frustrating point, I'm trying to do 50-minute episodes here. We will end. Yeah, that was just an extra 10 minutes of me forgetting that you have to control this. Why is the combat difficulty on hard? That is another problem. Bring that down to easy. That is crazy. Why is photo mode on? That's weird too. The problem certainly was over the past few days in which I haven't been playing Hellblade. I've been doing other things on the computer, and this has been minimized. And I did recognize when I went back to it that it had unpaused the game at some point, and it was playing audio in the background. I did a whole live stream where the audio was playing in the background, and I didn't even recognize it because it was just general rain sounds and wind sounds. But yeah, obviously other buttons were pressed, which I seriously doubt that would go down to the level of changing the audio any or changing the graphics any, since they are in a different submenu. There might be an argument to adjusting the gamma a little bit more, but I think it's fine where it is at the moment. But yeah, I'm still very much leading to being disillusioned as far as this game. As much as it was hyped for, I would say it was hyped up for about a month. It was definitely in the discussions of Game of the Year for the year it came out. Now playing it, I'm like, this just doesn't feel like video game. This feels like a something closer to just a interactive walking simulator experience. If you put this in VR and you took away all the controllers and it was just a VR movie, I think you'd get just about the same experience. Anyways, if this was a kinetic visual novel where it had this level of graphics, but there was no gameplay other than pressing A to move the dialogue forward, I think you'd have similar experience. And I have to compare this game to another game that came out many years ago, where it was Azura's Wrath. And that game was all about telling a crazy story, and yet almost 100% of it, if not 100% of it, was just QuickTime events. I don't know if I wouldn't have appreciated that more. There are ways, certainly, to make a horror game, and this is a kind of unique horror game because it's not dealing with your traditional ghosts or zombies, but there are certainly ways to either make a horror game a game or make your horror experience more of a linear storytelling experience. It would be very weird to compare this, for instance, to Resident Evil 4, where the characters are running around with guns and you're getting bullets nonstop, and it's much more of an action experience. Although you might compare it very much to at least the first section of Resident Evil 7, where you're mostly running for your life. I think probably this game once again fails terribly in that comparison. I don't think you can make a good comparison there. Well, you can make a good comparison. It's just that it shows the lacking content as far as Suna. It feels like Suna needed to have found. Oh, I hate to suggest a child to take care of, like God of War, but honestly, that writing trope probably would have helped, or at least an animal that she could have talked to. If she had just found a squirrel or a rat or something and she was keeping it as a pet and she was talking to it every now and then, that certainly would have let Suna as a character say a lot more dialogue, where she really hasn't said, I think, maybe 2 or 3 words and some grunts so far in 3 hours of gameplay, or nearly 3 hours of gameplay. Which at a certain point that makes me wonder if I'm supposed to be relating to the voices in her head more than the character. But if that was the case, then I almost feel like the voices in the head should be telling their own stories instead of telling Suna's stories. If Suna is supposed to be the false protagonist, and the surprise is, oh no, she's actually an unimportant character, or surprise, she's actually the bad guy somehow, and it's the voices in her head that are the actual protagonist, well then somehow you have to write story and give characterization to voices in the head of the character. Which, unless Suna has some kind of magical powers where she's stealing the minds and souls of other people and putting them in her head, I don't know how you tell that story either. Or, they could have told the story of the bad guy, or the beloved head of Dylan, or they could have focused more on talking about Druth. Seems like Druth is potentially going to be out of the story after this section, so I don't know what they're going to do at that point. If they do, halfway through the game, add enough gameplay content where it really starts to feel like a game, it's probably going to be a little too late at that level. I don't know if I can really enjoy that idea either. So I am now at this point probably set up where I'm just gonna want to try and rush through this game as quickly as possible and just move forward. This is also a weird game in that while it does have depictions of mental health issues, it's really not like Dead Space where there's mental health issues and horrific imagery, or really grotesque horrific imagery. I think Dead Space was also a lot better as far as environmental settings, as far as we've yet to see cramped dark corridors with creepy sound effects and jump scares or anything like that. So it seems like they may very well have just scared themselves, where they didn't want to go too far with this concept, in fear of actually mentally scarring people. Whereas I think if you're going to try and tell a story like this, I think you have to, as an artist, you hold yourself to a high standard to push it too far and potentially have somebody sue you for creating something that is just horrifically mentally scarring. You don't get the likes of the H.R. Giger artwork, who was the creator of the Aliens Xenomorphs, for instance. And you don't get the likes of Salvador Dali in some of his artwork, although Dali's not as horrific. I don't know if I can name any others off the top of my head, but there definitely were some artists that went for that very shocking imagery, and you don't get the likes of that, certainly, if you hold yourself back. And if video games are really supposed to be a new form of art, we need artists willing to push the limits to an extreme. And that's one thing I can at least applaud for games like Agony and Lust for Darkness. Even if neither one of those games are particularly that good, they decided to go very far in a direction. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.